A strategic chess move or a dangerous game of risk? Israel has become the first and only country to recognise Somaliland as a sovereign nation, and in doing so has inserted itself into the centre of a complex geopolitical choke point. We'll debate the implications here on Counterpoints with me, Melinda Nusafora. It has its own government, army, currency and passport. But for 34 years, no other country recognised Somaliland's existence until Israel broke that status quo.
I express my wholehearted appreciation to the State of Israel for its brave decision, which reflects both historical continuity and confidence in Somaliland's demonstrated commitment to peace, stability, and responsible governance.
Our friendship is seminal and historic. So I'm very, very happy and I'm very proud of this day, and I want to wish you and the people of Somaliland the very, very best there.
The self-proclaimed republic sits in a strategically important position on the Gulf of Aden. Through its recognition, Israel may be aiming to secure a foothold in the Horn of Africa and counter Iranian and Turkish influence in the region. But like all gambles, it's a risky move. Israel has potentially isolated itself from important regional actors. And more broadly, the African Union warns it could encourage other regions to secede. So on this episode, we'll ask, why has Israel made this move now? What are the broader international implications? And is Somalia heading for domestic unrest or, potentially, civil war? Joining us for this discussion is Ahmed Abdihadi, a Somalian political commentator who's a regular contributor for RTN Somali TV. Tobias Ellwood is back with us, former British Middle East Minister and Conservative Member of Parliament. And rounding out the panel, Awale Shirwa, Horn of Africa political economic analyst and former Minister of Planning and National Development for Somaliland. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us here on Counterpoints. Well, Somaliland unilaterally declared its separation from Somalia in 1991, but in the following 3 decades, no other country had recognised its autonomy until now. Perhaps that's an indicator of just how complex and how fragile the geopolitical situation is in the Horn of Africa and in the broader Red Sea region. So, Awale, let's start with you as a former Somaliland minister. Why now? Many countries have liaison officers, say, in Somaliland, including the UK, Ethiopia and Turkey. So why do you think Israel felt the need to take this further step?
Thank you very much, Melinda. And I'm glad the sentence you started. And I start with correcting that, because Somaliland did not exist from 1991. It became an independent country from 26 June 1960, and it got recognition from Britain. So we should establish that, and then it voluntarily united with Somalia, which was Italian Somalia. So we have to establish that, and in 1991, self-determination, it decided to withdraw the union. So that is first what I would like to contribute. Indeed. Your second question, which you said, why now? So first of all, the good answer always comes from the country that grants the recognition. So that is, but probably what you want me to discuss is what I think is the reason. Israel knows why it granted recognition, and it's a very important country in the world. But this is what I would like to share with your audience. The current president, Mohammed Abdullahi, who is a democratically elected president, came to power 1 year ago. the past 35 years, every president, every government appealed to international community in different parts of the world. We reach out to the Muslim world. We started with Somalia. We had negotiations with Somalia. It didn't end. It didn't result. So we moved to the other Muslim world, to the Arab world, to the global, and that continued for the last 3 decades. I come to the now. The president, when he get elected, he wrote to the 40 head of states, directly appealing every one of them to look into the conditions of Somaliland and really grant international recognition. One of the responses came back from Israel, and I think that was the key, and that should be credited to President Abdurrahman Erro, that he appealed to 40 head of states.
But if 40 head of states were appealed to and only Israel is the one that took it up, why do you think Israel wants to recognise now? It could have done it 34 years ago.
And that is another thing. I think Israel was one of the first countries that recognized in 1960 Somaliland. So that is a history that is still there. But what I would like to establish, a view that I want to share with your audience and with you as well, recognition and non-recognition of a new state is invariably political decision, not legal decision. States extend sovereign recognition to other states based on perceived strategic national interests. And I think why Israel now grants international recognition is exactly that. Is because it's a strategic decision that Israel sees the time is right to recognize Somaliland now, because it is also its interest.
Okay.
Strategic interest.
Ahmed, what do you make of that? Is this purely a move by Israel for its own strategic interests?
I think it's that way because Israelis wanted to get foothold in the Horn of Africa, particularly in the Red Sea, which is a strategic place. And also after recognition, according to the Israeli media, they wanted to establish military surveillance as well as intelligence infrastructure within this corridor. So I think this is the fast move of Israeli government to get foothold in the Horn of Africa. But the wider implications, I think it's not that good for Somalia, the motherland, and the Somaliland in which my friend here is trying to secede from it. Because this is encouraged extremist groups. It's also, Somalia is socially structured on clan identity. So within the main clan that lives in Somaliland, there's also other clans that are not happy with succession and the recognition of Israelis. Also, religious extremist groups are there also. Some of them, maybe hundreds of them, has been recently cracked on or arrested by the Somaliland government. And as you know, this region is extremely fragile region. So I don't think this is a prudent move by Somaliland to seek recognition from Israel, as also is many countries in the world see it as it's a pariah state, a state that's implicated in mass murder of Palestinians. So I don't think that doesn't help the current situation in Somalia as well as in Somaliland.
Tobias, you've visited Somaliland in a political capacity, and as Awale rightfully pointed out, Britain does have a historical past in that region. So give us your perspective on why Israel has taken this step to break the status quo, so to speak, now.
Yeah, I think you highlight two very important but slightly separate questions here. There's the pursuance of independence by Somaliland, which is clearly a long-term project. And then there's the sudden decision by Israel at this moment in time to suddenly say, we now support Somaliland as an independent state. I think the only country in the world to do so. And it's useful to perhaps take those separately. We started off quite rightly by looking at the history, and much of Africa's history is somehow tied to British engagement and control, and Somalia and Somaliland is no different. the key date, I think, is 1960, when both British and Italian parts of Somalia became independent and merged into what we see today as the one country. But when I visited, it was clear that there's a massive feeling of independence, of autonomy in the various parts of the country. It is a federated structure anyway, similar to the United Arab Emirates, in fact, where you are. So, Puntland, Jubaland, the Southwest state, for example, they all have their own separate parliaments. They don't have their own presidents as well. So, and on top of that, you must overlay the chaos that's caused by a very corrupt Mogadishu, a very corrupt central government, and of course, Al-Shabaab, that's taken full advantage of the chaos, of the absence of good governance, security as well. Somaliland has been interesting because it's managed to exist in an autonomous state, to do well, to look after its own. And so it clearly wants to advance in that direction. I see greater autonomy should be given as a first step before you talk about a breakaway Somaliland, giving, in a similar that Scotland in the UK, for example, got more powers to run its own affairs. That, I think, is a logical step to take the world with you. What we've now seen is Israel make this decision, and then immediately the world has condemned this. The neighbors, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, the African Union itself, China has also weighed in. There's only a single country, I think, that's sort of stood up and said, well, that's not a bad idea. And that's Prime Minister Netanyahu's friend, Donald Trump. And that takes me very quickly to say, why is Israel doing this now? I think this is what we call in Britain a dead cat. It's a deliberate throwing something on the table to get us all talking about something that isn't Israel. Because if you think of the pile of problems that Israel's currently facing, why would they wander into another foreign policy announcement such as this? We know what's going on in Gaza, how difficult that is. We see what's happening in the West Bank, problems of a Palestinian state. Interesting that they won't recognize a Palestinian state, but happen to recognize something else. And then, of course, the challenge with Iran. So Israel's things coming over the hill, affecting them, are enormous. And yet here they are, making a decision, throwing out there just to keep us busy, and I think distracted from what is actually going on in Israel, in Gaza, West Bank, and so on.
Let me really intervene there. And what Tobias is saying is if Britain and international community want staged phases, the world has 34 years. Britain had 34 years to listen to Somaliland, to talk to Somalia, to recommend that stage you're talking about. But what I would like to say here is that when a state is recognizing another state, it always looks at its interests. The United States last night on the Security Council stated that correctly, and it said Israel is looking at its interests. And what I would like to hear, I'm not defending the Israelis' interests here. What I would like to present is a country, Somaliland, has done 34 years what you expect from any country, recognized or not recognized. Elections, stability. I will not comment on what Ahmed talked about clans, because Somaliland really, Nobel Prize winners, James Robinson, who got Nobel Prize, wrote in his book what Somaliland did, no other countries did, how we did conflict resolution. So Somalia will not lecture us how we deal with resolution, community and clan issues. So we are in a different league in that sense. But what I would like to establish here is Somaliland has been patient for 34 years. So we go back to the Melendez question, which is really important. Why now and why it matters? I think there are a few points I would like to share quickly, which is the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden. Somaliland sits, as you all know, at a straight choke point. And in Djibouti, in Horn of Africa, this is contested area. So many forces and powers. So it is no-brainer that every country, major country, important countries in the region and wider, want to have their footprints in there. So therefore, countries are looking their interests, Israel is looking into their interests, but we are not sitting here, Somaliland, we're looking into our interests as well. We're not engaging these dialogue and these agreements to make disruptions. We believe in actually the opposite. We believe recognized Somaliland will gain more formal, will gain more intelligence, will gain more material. So it will contribute more stability. And I think Israel also has calculated, it will probably, and Somaliland has calculated, there will be short-term backlash from regional actors like Turkey, Egypt, and probably, but that is a low-cost diplomatic backlash. And Israel knows well that these countries are fragmented. They don't have unified interests. So we have to focus this. Okay, I will give.
All right, because Tobias, I see that you want to interject there.
Yeah, I simply say that I support the long-term determination, strategy for Somaliland to become independent. I declare that now, and I couldn't say that as a Foreign Office Minister because it wasn't British policy. But I like the idea of Somaliland being able to stand on its own feet. The strategy, if I may humbly say, has gone awry because what you've not done is lobby, I think, the right countries, nor offer what would be a plausible direction of travel for the whole of Somalia. When you just want to break away and become independent, clearly Somalia itself will be weakened overall. And therefore, having a strategy that allows all parts of Somalia to grow with you, that would be a logical strategy for the area. Because I'm sorry, on the face of it, Israel suddenly, out of nowhere, saying, I support your plans to become independent, actually smack of simply signing up a hopeful ally so that Israel can take on the Houthis just across the water in Yemen. And that may be right or may be wrong, but that's the optics that I'm afraid look very, very clear at the moment. If you want to go down this direction of travel, then get the support of other regional allies, Muslim countries as well. Israel calling out right now, I just think, make it very clear, this is Prime Minister Netanyahu, is a very clear direction that he's trying to take. As I say, what we say in Britain, a dead cat, a distraction from us focusing on what is going on in Gaza, what's going on in the West Bank, what's going on with Iran. We know that area is all in trouble. And suddenly now, what are we talking about now? We're talking about Somaliland.
Ahmed, let me bring Ahmed in. Is Israel using Somaliland, just as pawns in their own games, as Tobias is saying?
I think that is a reasonable explanation, given not only the war in Gaza, but domestically, the Prime Minister Netanyahu is facing legal as well, political domestic challenge within the country. So he wants to channel his problems. That was even the case of his attack against Iran. If you remember back, he was implicated in the Israeli court system. But apart from the Somali structural fragility, which every country can do whatever it likes to do. Nevertheless, I see this is not wise for Somaliland people because if you want to secede from Somalia, there is established international norms to do so, which is to sit down with the mother country, negotiate with them, and then after negotiation, strike an agreement, and then go for popular voting or memorandum ways as other countries did. Today there is 1,000 or 800 secessionist groups, so the world cannot accommodate all these groups to form states. So I think people in Somaliland needs to just set back and ask the question: is Israeli recognition of Somaliland a good starter? I think it's as more problematic maybe than what they are about to drive from their recognition.
Okay, Awale, a right of response from you?
Melinda, first of all, this myth that we didn't approach the right approach that's coming from Tobias and Ahmed, I think it's not true. Somaliland has tried the last 34 years in different routes international, even UK, Turkey, Djibouti, there were dialogue with Somalia. We tried. Somalia couldn't really respect the basic preliminary agreements that has been agreed in these meetings. It has going on for 12 years. So that the world must hear this. Somaliland has tried it. It didn't work. So you cannot hold hostage for 6 million people for 34 years while we see what's happening in Somalia, that they cannot even still held an election. They cannot even have a government beyond their city, which I'm not happy. I'm not saying that. I'm not burying that. But I mean, you cannot hold 6 million people who really fulfill all criteria, who tried to talk to Somalia, because now in front of these two gentlemen, I can confirm as a former minister, we tried different formats. Even we tried negotiation under a not neutral host, which really was pro-Somalia. So I have to establish that. Apart from that, what I would like to conclude here, Melinda, is Somaliland is what is now, the attention it's getting, it is not something else. It's geography where we are in the world. We were located in a very important position. The Britain and the West and the world ignore Somaliland despite all the good things we have done before. We can no longer be ignored. In the multipolar world, where competing powers are competing in our backyards, in our corridors.
But are you happy to have Somaliland be used as a pawn by Israel, if indeed that is what's happening?
Our government and president and minister of presidency clearly answered that question. We went to Israel, to other countries, the same question. So we didn't go with a different question. The same question that Tobias probably used to see when he was a minister, as a UK minister, that's the same question. So that if we get the same answer that we should have get from Britain, which is granting recognition that we need it, we deserve it, that is what we got. The implication is something we can discuss. And as Somaliland, there is a responsibility on our shoulders now that we shouldn't be using it as weaponize it as a strategic proxy war or that kind of. We must try our best to do our homework well.
Okay, I want to stay on international topics just for a little bit longer, and then we are going to go into more of a domestic focus. But because we've been talking a little bit about the geopolitical situation, Israel's recognition obviously comes at an extremely fragile time, both in the Middle East and Eastern Africa, given Somaliland's strategic location. Israel's move does have the potential to upset the balance of power. The African Union, Saudi Arabia, Egypt and Turkey, amongst others, have warned that it could have a destabilising effect across the region. And importantly, it could disrupt, according to regional analysts, control of key shipping lanes that also serve as a route to transfer arms to various places, such as Sudan. So, Tobias, you were talking about distraction, destabilisation. Is Israel bringing fire to a powder keg of this region? Is Israel trying to provoke a conflict?
Whether it's trying to provoke a conflict or not, as I say, I'm saddened by Prime Minister Netanyahu's ability to think strategically. I mean, we've discussed this in previous programs where his superior utility of force in Gaza didn't really lead to any political direction of travel. It was just pure destruction for the sake of it. And now we see him signing up to support Somaliland's push for independence. But all this will do is actually potentially bring war to Somaliland. It's a possibility now that the Houthis will target Israelis, Jews, or so forth, those connected in Somaliland itself. So as your question implies, it could certainly make the Horn of Africa more dangerous. And then there's Iran as well, is trying to counter Iran's influence. There's an absence of grand strategy as to what you do about the Red Sea region, which, again, as your question implies, seems to be a conduit for weapons and fighters to flow in and out of Eastern Mediterranean and into that neck of the woods. And then, of course, further down, we've got that whole basket case of Sudan as well. So this is a very, very difficult time for East Africa. I would humbly say to our friend from Somaliland, I'm sorry that Britain didn't do enough in my time to listen to your genuine requests to pursue independence. I wish I could have done more. But you're not in good company now with Prime Minister Netanyahu. You really are not. But we're now discussing this. It's back on the international spotlight. So perhaps this is the moment to take advantage of this and offer a potential direction of travel to make your case again, because the world is now looking very carefully at where on earth Somaliland is on the map in many cases, in many diplomatic corridors, and why are you pursuing this, have been pursuing it since the 1990s?
Ahmed, what do you think? I mean, is there, avoiding domestically, because we will come to that in just a moment, but do you think that Israel has maybe miscalculated here, maybe not considered, as Tobias has said, the broader implications of what its recognition could mean for the region?
I don't see Israeli miscalculated. The Prime Minister knows exactly what he's doing here. He's trying to make more conflict in the Horn of Africa, which is already full of crisis and conflicts. So he adds the fragility to another fragility. But the question is not the decision by Israeli or the move by the Israeli Prime Minister, is the response by Somaliland elite and Somaliland ruling class, including my friend here. They shouldn't take this bait, and this bait is very dangerous. And I would like to ask my friend a question, which is like, after Union in 1960, the main reason you are trying to secede from Somalia was a moral question, in which the military system brutalized Somaliland, particularly Hargeisa. If that was the motivation that you are looking for secession, why you are now making a company of Benjamin Netanyahu, who is implicated in international justice system and courts and implicated in genocide in Gaza? How you morally make an argument of this?
Wale?
Yes, first of all, I just, as an individual, I have to make it clear that I am not happy, I'm not pro what has happened in Gaza. I feel sorry for Palestinian people, and it's not right what has happened in Gaza. That is, I have to put, I don't want to politicize that. So that's something personal level. The other thing I don't want to go back.
But this is a politics. This recognition is politics.
So what we need to see, Mr. Ahmed, is basically Somalia, as you know, had 34 years to talk to Somaliland to come to some sort of agreement. The arrogance of a government that is only imprisoned in Mogadishu refused to respect a country flourishing democracy in Somaliland, to talk to them respectfully. I was a government minister. I'm an academic from London School of Economics. I have been talking and following these developments for many years. So Somalia is really squarely to blame whatever happens in that region in broader sense. So what I want to come back to the world and Tobias and international community is this. Instead of blaming Somaliland, the steps that it has taken now and making warnings what could happen, what the international community has still opportunity to really forcefully intervene, recognize Somaliland, offer genuine recognition, talk to Somalia, talk to the African Union, Arab world, and genuinely come on board. You cannot ask people to go back where you sit and make no progress. And as Somaliland, there is a responsibility that they should shoulder, which is they should really ensure they should not contribute more disruption. And then Somaliland government made it clear that their intention is not that their country be used a launching pad for any proxy war in the near future. So therefore, I leave Melinda, if I want to conclude that, the world, I think the US is already showing a leadership as not condemning Israel. And also we have to establish Israel is also seeing that a lot of international countries like Britain and France and other countries are recognizing Palestine. So therefore, the right to self-determination becoming an important point for international community. So therefore, double standard of Western countries. I don't want to use this as individual, but in the Western countries, there is a double standardness that sometimes they respect self-determination and good governance. At the same time, they now say, telling us not to move forward.
Tobias, go ahead.
Yeah, I listen very, very carefully to what you've just said. And again, I have sympathy. I would say, this might sound slightly shocking, but I couldn't count more than 5 members of parliament in the UK Parliament that understand Somaliland's history, that understand the fact that the British were involved. This was very much today it has its own political system, its own government institutions, its police force, its own currency, even its history, that dates back to the 19th century under colonial rule. The British parliamentarians, indeed the British public, don't understand that. The fact that this was a British protectorate that until 1960, as I said earlier, very much looked after its own. There is a powerful case for Somaliland to claim pursuance of independence. I reiterate that, unfortunately, you've now allowed Israel to jump into bed with you, and that's alienated an awful lot of countries because of that. And now the focus is, we're all talking about it, it's an opportunity. There is a massive opportunity here now for Somaliland to rekindle, I think, their strategy, which must go through the United Nations to say we are going to make the case. It must also go through Mogadishu too, to say let us have our referendum. Let us, in the same way we had in Scotland, to allow the Somaliland people an opportunity for them to declare. And when it's done above board in this manner, then international support will be behind you. But when you see Israel, I'm afraid, I support Israel's right to exist. Absolutely right. They've had their democracy in one of the most difficult parts of the world. But the current leader, I'm afraid, it does not have Somaliland's interests at heart, in my view. Somaliland is being used for what could be of advantage for Netanyahu in his battles against Yemen and indeed Iran as well. So there's a chance here. There's an opportunity here to revisit a strategy, to gain greater support. But that starts with educating congressmen, members of parliament across Europe and elsewhere on the United Nations Security Council to show that there is a genuine claim, because of your recent history, for Somaliland to become independent.
I just would like to ask.
So,
as I would like to ask Tobias, does this government, Israel, does it has embassy in United Kingdom? Does it has relationship with the United Kingdom?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it's a very active embassy, and there is a large Jewish community here in the UK as well, separate from the Israeli community, but linked, by the Jewish faith.
Yeah, but how credible is that? Because US didn't expel Israeli embassy, it didn't shut down, it didn't close diplomatic ties, and a British official or former minister is telling us don't engage politically with Israel. How credible is that?
I'm not sure where you got that from. You cannot break engagement. What you can do is stand up to what Prime Minister Netanyahu is saying. That's very different. Nobody's saying break contact and goes that against all the rules. You require back channels. You require greater understanding. You require conversations to actually take place. But also you require to speak publicly when you think, even if it's your friend, including the United States, including Donald Trump, you have to speak out if you think they are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
What would Somaliland refuse?
I think
what would Somaliland refuse? I just want to hear from Tobias. They offer us a recognition which the world, the Western world, Arab world, and Muslim world refuse it. They offer us that recognition. Put your shoes in our shoes, in ourselves. What would you refuse? In short.
No, you're absolutely right to raise that question. If a country like Israel suddenly declared support for the big conquest, the big issue that you've been working on for the last, 40, 50 years, of course you're going to welcome that. But the realpolitik here, I think we've discussed here, is very, very difficult indeed. I just hope that your eyes are open to the difficulties that support from this particular individual has. It comes with baggage. And I'm simply saying, fine, you've got to deal with that. You can't turn it away. What you can do is take advantage of the spotlight, of the fact that we're discussing this, to now rekindle your case to the various components of the United Nations Security Council and indeed the General Assembly to say, we have a genuine argument here, separate from what Israel has said or is doing.
Ahmed, what do you want to add?
Yes, I would like just to say that I have been writing for a long time in a support for Somaliland, not the cause of secession of Somaliland, but to look back the history, the brutalization of the former regime and all this. I'm not happy with the policies and the orientations of the current federal structure in Mogadishu, where I am now. But the logic or the question that you right now appeal to the former British MP, that you were one time in history our master, therefore you have to recognize us back. I think that won't help. Even in the case of Israel, if you remember, British was one of the instruments that enabled Israel to be a state in the Middle East. I know it's true that the way Benjamin Netanyahu runs Israel is not the way humanity or the region accepts would like to be the case. But we would like to come to the domestic questions, which we should be careful about this. Somaliland structure is, as I said, is based on clans, on clan structure, a clan identity, and only one segment. I'm sorry to say that only one segment, the main central segment, is the one that drives the passion of secessionists. Both in other parties, they are unionist, pro-unionist. So I think before appealing to Israel or to the international community or to British or another country, we first sit together and talk and fix our problems. The way you are trying to say that we had negotiations and then we failed, that was not the case, because the last negotiations we had in Djibouti, you are the one who reneged and got to Ethiopia and signed with MOU, which set a motion of another crisis in this country. So I think the ruling class, educated class of Somaliland, should use logic, not emotions, to address the problem within Somalia.
So basically, quickly, Ahmed, I think as an academic, I think I regret that you are going into the clannish differences. Let me tell you, I am from Awdal, and you are trying to imply that Awdal people are not pro-Somaliland, and we should avoid these kind of.
But Awdal people are pro-union.
Let me tell you.
Research.
I would like to tell you this. If Somalia even wants future talks with Somaliland, they should avoid this kind of cheap and divisive strategy to divide and rule. So that is, you cannot speak when somebody like me who is hailing from this community, that you can use that techniques to divide them and incite each other so that you can gain your political objectives. That you shouldn't do that. Well, we should do it. We should discuss the broader lines where we can share prosperity, we can work together, Somaliland, if we can have a dialogue. That was something we can discuss. But to discuss clannish, I think I disagree. I'm from Awdal region, and I think it's good for Somaliland. It's good for the Awdal people. We might have our internal differences. We might have some political differences, but I mean, we are from the same country. So what I would like Melinda want to conclude here is we're discussing much about Benjamin Netanyahu and his policies and what he hasn't done good and whether he's a good leader. I'm here to discuss about Somaliland, what we can offer to the world, how we can leverage this recognition, how we can ensure that it doesn't lead to more disruption, how we can mitigate the backlash from regional backlash from Turkey, from Egypt. So that is, Somaliland has responsibility to reach out these countries and to address their concerns, whether it's the Middle East or in other countries, and we are doing that.
Mm-hmm. We've veered into a little bit of domestic territory. So let's move on to the final segment of our debate here, because I think that it follows on nicely. The Somali president, Hassan Sheikh Mohammed, has said that Israel's recognition is a threat to domestic security, but also stability in the Horn of Africa. And as we've been discussing earlier, the African Union has warned that it could encourage other secessionist moves. Let's take a listen, first of all, before we get into this final segment of our debate, to Somalia's permanent representative and what he had to say at a special UN meeting recently. Let's take a listen.
This act of aggression is aimed at encouraging fragmentation of the territory of Somalia, which is the northwestern region, is an integral part and is destabilizing the Horn of Africa, entire Horn of Africa, and the Red Sea region.
Ahmed, is there a real concern that this will destabilise Somalia domestically? Is Somalia strong enough to weather this current domestic storm?
No doubt, no doubt. This will extremely destabilize Somalia. And it's also adds the implications of the extremist groups which are active here in Somalia. Daesh, Al-Shabaab, they use this religious appeal and, propaganda messages to, gain support, to raise funds for their cause. But I am not sympathizing with the president, because I believe he is a part of the problem in Somalia. His policies, his lack of vision, and his lack of uniting people together, and his lack of studying and understanding the passion of Somaliland people to get away of these 35 years old challenges is the one that contributed entire of this failure. So he should be blaming himself. I don't give him any sympathy regarding to this, but no doubt that Al-Shabaab, extremist groups, clan identity, clan hatred, all this will be weaponized to stabilize in Somalia more.
Shall I intervene?
Please.
I go ahead?
Go.
Well, I think if we expect any disruptions or any destabilizations, if that's can only happen if the partners that are opposing this recognition are gonna weaponize and arm other people to disrupt this. So I think we should warn against that, and international community has responsibility to intervene in that aspect. Within the Somali communities, I don't see this will lead to more internal fighting, because Somaliland and Somalia has been separate entities for the last 34 years. So within Somaliland, this will not cause more problematic. What I foresee can happen is other countries that could probably become more present in the region, and that could lead more clashes between these forces. But I rather see a Somaliland government getting recognition, become more increased capacity to safeguard the 800 long coastline, which already it safeguards with limited resources, with more technological advances and cooperation, security cooperation with international community, with Israel, with US, with UK. I see there will be also positive contributions. But the international community, if they are concerned that there will be repercussions, I think there is an opportunity that they could intervene now. They could talk to the regional who are not happy with the new developments. They could mediate. They could contribute more support, whichever possible to the situation.
Tobias, you don't look convinced.
No, this is a difficult subject, and in a positive way, it's good that this is now being discussed. Quite rightly, there's been an absence of, I think, informed discussion at the right levels at the United Nations as to what should happen, not just in Somalia and Somaliland, but in the Horn of Africa. And I say with some sadness, my own government, should be doing more. We've cut our aid budgets because there's pressure on domestic matters in the UK. The United States has done the same under Donald Trump, withdrawing international aid right across the world, including the Horn of Africa, including Somaliland, including Somalia as well. And that simply gives greater space for insecurity to grow, to corruption and so forth to thrive, and not to be able to focus on strengthening the country itself. So the international community has turned a blind eye, and this was led to where we are today. So I stress this perhaps is an opportunity now that light is being shone upon the region for some cognitive thoughts about where the region should go, because continuing down this road, simply with now the international community in the region split over whether or not to recognize Somaliland or not, and the potential of extremism to take advantage of the void in leadership, will simply take that part of Africa into a very darker place.
I mean, there have already been, even though there have been celebrations, there have been protests against recognition as well. So, Awale, I mean, how do you bring all of Somaliland with you if there are already protests against this?
Well, I mean, just like...
And I know that you and Ahmed sort of touched on that earlier, but that must be a domestic concern.
Melinda, we should emphasize that, like in any other countries, whether it's Britain or Saudi Arabia or any other countries, I mean, we have our issues sometimes. We have some disagreements, whether it's political or social or anything else. So we don't live in a perfect world. So it's unfair that some people can point out any specific incident or any conflict. What I see is a 6 million people who patiently waited for this moment to get a recognition. The jubilation and celebration the world has seen was phenomenal, was something unseen, and also we have to again revisit that these people has been living in a volatile region for the past 34 years. I have been a planning and development minister. With limited resources, these people has been paying a tax, has been accepting rule of law with a limited government provisions. And this is what the world should recognize. These people, you cannot turn your eye and say it, you can no longer benefit from this recognition. What the world and international community should do is really revisit the quest for recognition and really do something about it and get serious consultation with Somaliland. In terms of local protests, what I can tell you is Somaliland is really very happy. Somaliland is really trying even. This is the first time I've seen that the different segments, what's the religious, youth, women, people from diaspora are really united and really, even journalism. This is the first time I see 100% unity that people are saying, yeah, we deserve this and we have to protect this. And this is something they are very strong about it. And it will be very wrong that the international community suggests that it is a wrong that Somaliland really taking this with both hands. And I can confirm, Somaliland, I've never seen in official discussions or informal conversations that Somaliland ever discussed that they will harm the interests of the neighboring countries, Somalia, Yemen, or anywhere else. I have never seen as a minister, and I have never seen as an individual. And that's something that the world should hear it and value it.
We're almost out of time, so I just have one final question that I'm going to put to all of you just to give us your brief opinions. The African Union has warned that this could spark other secessionist movements throughout the region. Ahmed, let me start with you very briefly. Do you think that that is likely?
I think that's likely, and that encourages not only secessionist groups, but also extremist groups. Because if you know, Al-Shabaab and Daesh also wanted to create Somali territories within the Islamic State, which is out of international governance system or orders. So I think, despite all these facts, what Somali people in general, Somaliland and Somalia, Federal Republic of Somalia need, is to have a good leadership that not engaged with sentiments, emotions, but with reason and wisdom, and try to find a way to be part of the world together. Or if they wanted to separate and secede to each other, use the international recognized means of diplomacy and negotiation. But I don't see these types of approaches or policies will help Somalia or Somaliland or the Horn of Africa or in the world, as the world is today global.
Mm-hmm. Awale, what's your take on that warning from the African Union?
African Union, I think, produced conflicting responses. I mean, we had a fact-finding mission somewhere in early 2000, which really visited Republic of Somaliland and confirmed and established it's an exceptional case. And I mean, African Union had long argued that recognizing for Somaliland or any other country will lead to Pandora box. We have seen South Sudan, we have seen Eritrea. It has never led to a Pandora box. And I think Somaliland, meets that the charter that African Union always revere, which is that respecting the colonial borders. Somaliland has a colonial borders, which it gained from Britain in 1960. So I don't think this will lead to more domino effect, other problems, conflict. I don't see it for that. And I think the African Union, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Tobias, round us out. What's your opinion?
Yeah, as I say, I've repeated a couple of times, the spotlight's now on Somaliland. My humble advice would be to invite a delegation from America. Donald Trump, I have to say, I don't agree with much of what he says or does. He does have a way, though, of shining light on problems, of going into a particular area and shaking things up a little bit. But you need to take the international community with you, and that's not happened here. That's clearly the opposite has happened by Israel moving forward on its own in this way without discussion. I mean, Israel, most countries in the West or Western connected normally discuss these things behind the scenes and then make an announcement together. We saw that with Palestine. This isn't the way Prime Minister Netanyahu operates. So my advice would be engage with the White House, with the State Department, invite them to Somaliland to then do a report on saying, how can we look at this issue, all the jigsaw pieces, and say what would be best for long-term security? That, I think, would be perhaps a way out of where we are today.
What about a knock-on effect? Do you think this could encourage other cessationist movements?
Well, it will do, unless it's done in a structured method. It could be that there isn't a case for autonomy, that when you look at the pieces, America says, actually, this will destabilize. But if it's done in a way, I mean, we haven't discussed Finland, for example. They've also declared independence as well. Is there another model which, like, as I say, the Emirates model is very interesting. They're separate kingdoms that work together to stay as one unified country. That perhaps is a stepping stone that you could go towards. Okay,
very, very briefly, Awale.
Why, Tobias? We have an example precedent here. The South Sudan didn't lead to any further fragmentation of other countries.
But the method and the way was different from here. Then start a separate state recognition. We know the way.
No, we have even a stronger argument than South Sudan. We were a state. I don't know if you were, right? We were a state recognized by 34 countries. So, I mean, I think nobody has an answer for that, Melinda. I can assure you. South Sudan didn't lead any defragmentation. Nobody can tell you that. It's a justification to stop Somaliland. I don't think it will lead to more problems in Africa.
It is a really complex topic, and your analysis, all three of you, has been very illuminating, and we really appreciate all of your points of view here on Counterpoints. Ahmed Abdi Hadi, the Somalian political commentator, thank you for being with us. Tobias Ellwood, former British Middle East Minister and Conservative MP, and Awale Shirwa, former Minister of Planning and National Development for Somaliland. Thank you for your contributions. And as always, we appreciate your company on this episode of Counterpoints. Be sure to keep up to date of our latest debates and interviews by subscribing to Al Arabiya English on YouTube. And don't forget to follow us on X and TikTok. We'll see you for the next episode.